Hey folks, welcome back to This Week in History. I'm ready to teach, you're ready to learn, so let's do this thing. On May 17th in 1536, the marriage of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn was annulled. Anne was so upset about it that she kinda lost her head. In 1869, the Boshin War came to an end with the imperial defeat of the Tokugawa shogunate at the Battle of Hakodate. Ever seen The Last Samurai? Yeah, pretty much that, but a historically accurate version of that, which, by the way, The Last Samurai was not historically accurate and combined several wars together. Thanks, Tom Cruise, and, Hail Xenu or whatever. In 1900, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum was published. That's it. It's a classic of children's literature. I don't have to make a joke about everything. Jeez, people. On May 18th, in 1096, over 800 Jews were massacred in Worms, Germany, beginning the German people's long, storied history of religious tolerance. In all seriousness, this incident is seen as the start of anti-Semitic behavior that culminated with, well, we all know what it culminated with. And speaking of bad things going on in the Crusades, in 1268, Crusaders lost the city of Antioch, and in 1291, they lost the city of Acre, the last major Crusader city in the Holy Land. They still held on to a small fort, but it wasn't the same. On May 19th, 1586, Mary Queen of Scots, who was at one time Queen of Scotland, marry that. Wow, okay. We're gonna leave that one in. On May 19th of 1586, Mary Queen of Scots, who was at one point the Queen of Scotland, imagine that, was ordered to be arrested by Queen Elizabeth I. She was then tried and convicted of conspiring to gain the English crown and executed. Couple of things here. One, it took 2 swings to complete her beheading, so it wasn't exactly painless, and 2, when Elizabeth heard about the execution, she wanted to distance herself from it as much as possible, so she claimed that the man in charge of the trial had overstepped his bounds and had him imprisoned for almost 2 years before she was convinced that, doing that was kinda crazy. And, once again, we decided to risk one of our interns to try and get some public opinions on who was on Team Elizabeth and who was on Team Mary. Dave, can you hear me? Oh, alright then. Well, you give 'em hell, Dave.
Squirrel tactic!
That's right, squirrel tactic. On May 20th in 1498, Vasco da Gama discovered the sea route to India, opening up the spice trade to be dominated by the Portuguese until eventually the Dutch stole it from them. Oh, good times. In 1631, the sack of Magdeburg, where roughly 20,000 of the German city's residents were killed after an attack from the Holy Roman Empire as part of the 30 Years' War took place. Why is it always Germany? In 1873, Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis received a patent for jeans with copper rivets. Davis actually invented them at his tailor shop and went to his fabric supplier, Levi Strauss, for help in getting the patent. Levi owned the company, but Davis invented blue jeans. And then there's this. Oh, wow, okay, throwing me a curveball there, huh? Yeah, okay, yeah. Moving on. On May 21st in 1881, Clara Barton established the American Red Cross, which is the American arm of the International Committee of the Red Cross, which was founded in Switzerland in 1863. When you look at the cross, it all kind of makes sense. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh completed the first non-stop flight over the Atlantic. Same day, but in 1932, and Amelia Earhart became the first woman to do so. On May 22nd, in 1370, the Brussels Massacre took place, where between 6 and 20 Jews were burned at the stake, and the rest of the Jewish community, an unknown number, were banished from the city. What charges were levied against them? That a few of the Jewish men had stabbed bread that was meant for communion, so they burned them at the stake. Oh, and according to Jewish sources, the real reason for all this was to cover up the murder of a wealthy Jewish banker who many of the accusers owed money to, so take that as you will. And speaking of massacres, man, there's a lot of them this week. In 1520, the massacre at the Great Temple took place in Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. Accounts vary, imagine that. History's funny that way, but either the Spanish burst into a festival and killed everyone that they possibly could that couldn't run away fast enough, or the Spanish were stopping the Aztecs from performing human sacrifices. Could be a combination of both, who knows, but what matters is that this turned the Aztecs completely against the Spanish and it just went downhill from there. And if you're interested in finding out more about the sad night and just exactly how Cortez pulled off his magic act of toppling an empire, check out the eye up there in the right hand corner. Also, of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and or check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. Yeah, apparently we have one of those now. And those links you can find in the description below. On May 23rd in 1430, Joan of Arc was captured and eventually handed over to the English. They had her tried for heresy and burned at the stake. Man, massacres and burning at stakes. Got a lot of them this week. She was actually burned at the stake, tied back up, burned again, tied back up, and burned one more time. Yes, that's 3 times that the body was burned so that there was nothing but powder left, and that was thrown into a nearby river. In 1934, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, renowned bank robbers better known as Bonnie and Clyde, were killed in an ambush. Also in 1934, the 5-day Battle of Toledo between the Ohio National Guard and striking workers of the Electric Auto Light Company began. Luckily, only 2 deaths occurred, so I guess that's a positive here. This is also considered one of the most important strikes in labor union history. And in birthdays this week, we've got William Sturgeon, inventor of the electromagnet and the electric motor in 1783, Philip II, King of Spain during what was seen as their golden age in 1556, and acclaimed German composer Wilhelm Richard Wagner was born this week in 1813. And it looks like that's just gonna about do it for this week. Thanks for tagging along. We'll see you here next week. Same squirrel time, same squirrel channel. And of course, never forget, we're always watching.